We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest all the way from the UK is Melitta Campbell. We're going to be talking about networking. Yeah, that big thing about getting out there and mingling with people and sharing with people what it is you do, but most importantly, who you are. But she was a shy girl. So how do shy girls network? Well, she's written a book, The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, and she's going to share those tips today of how, from being an extremely shy girl, she then went on to actually teaching networking in corporate and now teaches entrepreneurs how to network with confidence. She says growing up the shy girl, she held herself back for a long time. This caused her to lose her voice and suffer low self-esteem, which was only when she got thrown out of a job interview that she realized just how badly this was affecting her life. Today, she's excited to share what she's learned from that moment about her real value and how learning and how to communicate has transformed her life. She is a multi-award winning business and mindset coach who has helped hundreds of women build their dream business lifestyles through her dream clients blueprint. She's also a leadership and has been featured in many top business media titles, and she regularly speaks to audiences around the world. And she's also a host of Driven Female Entrepreneur podcast and is the best-selling author of The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, the first in the series of inspiring titles from introverted business owners or for introverted business owners. She's also a TED Talk speaker and a coach for the UK and Switzerland. So this is something I think that we've got some people that just get out of the gate. I have one daughter like that. Opened the door at preschool, didn't look back. Wow, there she is, chatting away, confident as anything. And then I had a son who was more laid back, had to suss things out, cling to mum for a while before he got in there. And he is a gregarious leader and restaurateur now. So that shyness, is it a lack of self-confidence? Are we observing the arena before we want to interact? And how much does it affect how other people perceive us? Welcome to the show, hon.
Gosh, is that an opening question?
Yeah.
Lots to dig into there. It's really interesting, and it's funny looking back because I grew up labeled the shy girl, but when I look back, because I wasn't always shy, I remember at school we put on a play and the teacher just handed me the drumsticks instantly without thinking because she knew I loved to make noise, and I was always told to be quiet. So when I was at school and with my friends in an environment where I was comfortable, yeah, I could be quite outgoing. But my parents got divorced when I was 9, and we moved quite far away from everything that I knew and had to start afresh. And my dad didn't come with us. Obviously, he stayed in London. We moved to Wales, and so it was a big change.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point, I lost a lot of confidence and had all of these questions and nowhere to go to for the answers. And that shy girl took over, and she stayed for a very long time. And it was a different era. I remember being the weird kid at school because I was the only child whose parents were divorced.
Oh, really?
Everyone else, yeah.
Wow.
Everyone else had two happy parents, and apparently there was a big campaign to stop me and my brother going to school because the other parents thought that because my mum was a single mum that they would end up having to pay for us, that
What?
we would, yeah, we wouldn't be able
God,
to.
what do people think up, honestly?
Oh, I know. And you think, it wasn't that, well, maybe 50 odd years ago now, but it wasn't that far like behind, like that long ago. And but yeah, people had very narrow views. And
Yeah.
so it's, my mum was really struggling. She was on her own trying to rebuild her life and identity. And she'd been with my dad since she was 14. So
Right.
that was a really big challenge for her. And so we were kind of felt a bit alone. And yeah, I let other people talk for me. My mom was a bit of a talker. So I just let her speak for me. I didn't really believe in my value at
Mm.
that point, being on my own and kind of figuring things out. So I had this tendency to just say yes to anyone and everything. But people, other teenagers or don't necessarily have your best interests at heart. So I got myself into all sorts of trouble,
Hmm.
um, unintentionally. But that didn't really help with my confidence either.
Right.
And I'm a clever woman. I got to university. I moved to London. I got a good job. I was happy, and I thought I was doing okay. I thought, okay, this is me now. I'm successful. Until the company I was working for went into redundant receivership. So I lost my job, and for 6 months I was thrown out of interview after interview and just really unsuccessful. And then I went for one interview that I was really excited about. It was with the UK government as part of their communication pool. So my specialization was marketing and communications. So I was really excited because I'd get to do some really interesting communication projects. We had a whole day full of workshops and tests and all sorts. And then the last stage was having a panel interview. So I was really pleased with my progress. I went into the interview feeling quite confident. And I think it was about 15 minutes in, and the lead interviewer just stood up and told me to get out and threw my CV in my face. I was like,
What?
what is this part of the interview? I know the government is quite a
Yeah.
tough environment to work in. And she just like, no. She goes, no, absolutely not. Get out. I'm sick of your lies. And
What?
I was just shocked. I was like, well, I haven't been telling lies. Why would you think that? And she said, and I think what she said was what every other interviewer had been thinking, but didn't
Right.
say to my face. But she said, all I've said all the way through the interview is, we've done this, we did that. And she said she thought I was passing someone else's work off as my own, and that she was not going to have someone like that in her team. I was like, but I've worked in small companies. So there was no one else. I
Right.
did all this. I designed the
But you
strategies.
didn't take ownership though.
I didn't. And
Hmm.
so she said it's too late, threw me out. And I managed to get out of the building before the tears came. I cried all the way home and all of the next day. But then, the pity fog started to clear,
Yeah.
and I started to realize that she was right.
Yes.
I hadn't claimed anyone else's credit, but I hadn't taken my own credit.
Right. Yeah.
So that was just such an eye opener. Then the next interview, of course, I did things completely differently, explained how I designed
Mm.
strategies, how I made them happen, how I learned from my mistakes, and I got the job.
Right.
That really was my dream job as well. I was working for a large company for the first time. And on my first day, the interviewer said, it was all we could do not to give you the job on the spot. It was the best interview we've ever had. So
Oh, well,
um,
thank you to the woman who was rather brazen, but she
yeah,
gave you the old, proverbial kick in the butt that you needed, right? Because,
yeah,
you were going on the kind of, but that's part of being British is, and a little bit Canadian because I'm in Canada, is apologizing for who we are, or that if we talk um, too much, we're bragging, we're being conceited, you need to be restrained and demure and all of that. And it just doesn't work in business because they need people that they know, can talk the talk, that can stand up and be counted, so to speak. And, being shy or being apologetic, it really doesn't fit, does it?
no, absolutely. And I hear it all the time in women, and not just in the UK, but everywhere. And
Yeah.
saying, oh, listen, and we did this. And I was like, but who's we? And then,
Yeah.
oh, me, I did this. I was like,
Me
you
and my
really,
alter ego.
yeah,
Here's
believe
hobbyist.
that. But it's a great, I mean, I'm grateful for that incident because it taught me a big lesson,
Yeah.
and it's really made me change so much since then. It was a big eye opener, but it's also given me an amazing lesson that I can share with others.
Yeah.
When I hear them saying this, like, this is this instant, and then they get it
Yeah.
instantly as well. Like, gosh, you're right, I'm doing that too. So yeah, thank you, awful lady.
Yes, well, no, I mean, it was rather brazen the way she did it, but at the same time, it was what you kind of needed.
Yeah.
I've been the opposite way around. I was incredibly shy, but because I was very sheltered, I was a very sickly kid. So I missed a lot of school. I didn't have many friends. I was kind of very, isolated in many ways. So I had to step into a persona that was
Mm.
the brave one because the inside one was shivering. So I talked myself into jobs that I knew nothing about. And I would
That,
get them and have to learn on the spot, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Uh, but I realized that it didn't matter what job I was in. Like I was the first woman rep for Mobil Oil in South Africa, knew zero about oil. They even sent me to a course, still knew zero about oil. But I realized I didn't need to know about oil. The companies I was dealing with knew about oil. They knew what they liked. I was here for customer service,
yeah. And
right?
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Most
Mm.
of business, you don't need to know anything. You just need to know how to build relationships with people.
Yes.
Uh, and that's what business is all about.
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
that, yeah, but that relationship that you want to have with people, I really do believe you need to have with yourself first. Otherwise, you come off like a salesman rather than somebody who's being personable.
yeah. And when you know who you are and what you represent and what you stand for, you can start to show up in a way that attracts the right people to you.
Mm.
And you can build relationships in a way that people can really connect with.
Yeah.
And I think often, again, as women, I know men do this as well, but it seems to be predominantly women who are feel they have to be perfect. They have to be the good girl.
Yes.
And that just puts a wall between you and other people because they can't achieve that perfection. They can't relate to anything. So in showing your flaws and your vulnerability a little bit, you actually draw people to you. And I saw that when I was in corporate and I was pregnant, and I had awful morning sickness for
Mm.
4.5 months, and then my pelvis separated at 5 months. I had 2 weeks of nice fun pregnancy. um, but I felt so awful. It was like a permanent hangover. I couldn't even face picking up the phone or doing
Mm.
anything. But my team stepped into that space and they were incredible. And it was just such a shame because I learned that huge leadership lesson that when I allow my team to step up
Yes.
and take control and do better, they take that opportunity. And then I left and never came back. It's like, but it was a real insight for me that I had been a bit too controlling up until that
Mm.
point. I had been really trying to be too perfect. When just doing a kind of 75% good job instead of going for 110% the whole time would have been more than adequate.
Yeah, my son had to learn that lesson. He opened up a restaurant and he poured himself 150% into that restaurant. And then basically, COVID happened. He had a breakup. He snapped his Achilles heel. He's trying to balance the restaurant and keep it open with all the changes, this change, that change, every other change. And eventually it just, wore him down. And the staff said, get out of here. We know what we're doing here. If we need to call you, we'll call you. Get out of here and go take care of yourself. And he realized he had got such a good team around him that knew the routine, knew what to do, knew how to come together, that he could take that time without
Mm.
things falling to pieces because he wasn't there, which is the illusion that he had beforehand. But he built up such a good team that he didn't have to be there all the time and he could spend some time on himself, which they not only demanded, they made him pictures. Drew pictures and things like this. Go, don't come back until you feel, more yourself. And I think that's a mark of a good leader is when you build leaders up around you that aren't wanting just to go up to the top to lord over the others, but are leaders where they know their strength and they know the strengths of others and they know how to conduct that chorus in harmony with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, hats off to your son for finding those people and bringing
Mm,
them together in a way where they do work that way.
yeah.
And often we miss that
Yes.
until we have some moment that pushes us. And you, like when we were in pregnancy and your son with his like little bits not going quite right,
Right.
it's suddenly it comes to a point where you realize, oh, I have put this amazing framework in place and brought these incredible people in. Let's give them the space to do what they do best. So yeah.
Yes. I'm older than you, and I also had many years in South Africa, which is a very misogynistic country, especially when I was there. And so I had the huge battle of sexism going on all the time, and hard to climb any ladder, hard to do anything, and just this whole sexism, not just like I was a woman, but the hitting on you, and if you don't go, you're gonna lose your job, all of this type of thing going on, and it really did jaded me. And of course, eventually left South Africa, so because beautiful, beautiful country, but I just couldn't take apartheid and sexism anymore. How much of it, do you still feel that that is still in the business world? Or do you think that, because of the Harvey Weinsteins and everything else, that we now kind of hold that more accountable and we're supporting women more?
I hope so. I left corporate 15 years ago now, and growing up in business in the UK, in London, I didn't ever really feel held back by being a woman in business.
Hmm.
But then I always had incredible male mentors.
Right.
So I remember my first job, the CEO was my mentor, and he helped me start a new department when I had an idea. He was like, okay, well, let's try it and let's see. He was a real entrepreneur. But I worked within the sales team, and the director there was very much always, oh, you can't do that because you're a girl. And I was like, idiot, and and the CEO backed me up. It
Right.
wasn't, I think what his view didn't match my
Mm.
views, and so it kind of rolled off me like
Hmm.
like water off a duck's back. And then my next job, I remember it was my first week, it was Friday, it was the end of the day, about 5:30, something like that. I was about to go, and then one of the directors came up and asked me to type a fax for him. And I was, well, I could type. I said, well, I don't type. I didn't think that's what I was here to do. You have a secretary. Why don't you ask her? And he goes, well, she's gone home already. He's like, well, honestly, you'd be quicker doing it yourself. And
Hmm.
then he went storming into the CEO's office to complain about why have we hired a woman that doesn't type? And I was like, oh, this is it. I've lost my job 1 week in. And then the CEO called me in and he said, so, this director is telling me that you wouldn't type his fax. I was like, yeah, I didn't think that's what I was here to do. It's not really my skill set. And he said, I see. Come a bit closer. So I took a step closer and he held out his hand, shook my hand. He said, great. And never make the coffee either.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, I love people like that. Good.
Yeah, so he
Yes.
was brilliant. So I've
Mm.
always had in every single role someone like that, a
Yes.
leader who really supported me in doing the best I could do within that role. So, but the big shock was when I moved to Switzerland, because
Mm.
it was very much like you were saying in South Africa was, the secretaries would walk down the corridor and one of the guys would slap them on the backside and no one would say anything.
What
And
era is this? What decade is this?
so this was 2004.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
So, and I was really like taken aback by this. And then we had a new CEO came in. He was British, and I came in to start a department, but I was not elite like manager level at all. But then I got a few promotions, and I was reporting directly to his number two. And then I started to step up and perform well, and then got a promotion to report directly to the CEO. I worked in private banking. I know nothing, a bit like you, nothing
Mm.
about banking. I'm dyscalculic. I can't even read numbers. So,
Me
um,
too.
yeah. So I thought,
Letters, wrong way round. Yeah.
if a woman who knows nothing about banking and
I
doesn't,
can't type.
I wasn't fluent in the local language, everything was against me,
Right.
basically. So I went to the CEO and I said, I would love to use this as an opportunity to help inspire the other women in the organization, that they can also achieve more in their career. It's possible. If it's possible for me, it's more than possible for any of them. And I personally, I really feel the company could do with a culture shift.
Yes.
And he was like, yes, I've really felt it since he moved to Switzerland. But as a middle-aged white man, didn't really see that his role in bringing women in.
Right.
I mean, he put in quotas in place. So, we had to have 50% applications for every role from men and women. He made sure all the leadership training was 50-50. So he had done that kind of thing. But yeah, he was like, great, start a women's network and let me know what you need. And the CFO was my mentor for that project as well. And it was incredible. Over 2 years, we made such a big shift. And it was interesting because I opened it up to men as well as women. So we had lots of workshops and inspiring speakers and networking events and different things to bring the women together, give them more skills, give them a space to talk about the challenges and find solutions together. And but I asked the men that came, what do you get out of this? And it was really interesting because they said, well, this is the first time we've had any kind of environment that's encouraging, that is helping us be better, get more skills, get more understanding, build our network, that isn't training us to be better at our job, which is the usual corporate training. So they loved that aspect. But the other thing they said is it's the first time they've heard women speak up.
Yeah.
And so that for me was a huge epiphany. And I took that then to the board and said, look, can we do some communication training? So we brought in leadership communication training and coaching for all the leaders. And we made sure that we brought in the women into that as well. And that then made sure that everyone felt comfortable speaking up. And then the culture really shifted dramatically as well. And people felt more comfortable sharing their ideas, challenging the policies and things like this. It was great, and the board were really open to it as well. So I think you have to have the backing from the leadership.
Yes.
So whatever comes up can be actually actioned. And then I had my first child, and being that kind of society, there's no nursery places, so I couldn't get any childcare. So I had to leave the corporate environment. And I decided, well, I don't want to do nothing. So I started just doing some freelance writing on the side, and then became a communication consultant, coach, trainer, and kind of went that way. But what I really wanted to do was continue that work. I'd started helping women find their voice and speak up and build their confidence. And that's something that the journey that I'd been on as well, going from shy girl to moving to Switzerland, not having any friends or contacts, I had to learn to network.
Yes.
And I had to give myself permission to do it a way that felt comfortable for me. That took a long time to figure that out. And I started public speaking on the side of that as well. So those two went really nicely together. And that's what triggered the promotions. And so that really, really helped me. And then knowing that that's where women were struggling, or maybe weren't even aware that it was holding them back, not being able to speak up confidently in meetings and kind of share their views and challenge other people. That's what I wanted to keep doing. But it felt a step too far. I had a bit of imposter syndrome maybe, but also I had no support network. I had a baby. It felt too big a project to take on at that time. But I've kind of come full circle now. And now with the business coaching for women, it's kind of moving into that space. And now more women from corporate are coming and asking for my help with that, can you help me communicate and define my values and really make my mark in the company my way, doing it, being quietly influential, if you like.
Yes.
So I love that it's kind of gone full circle, and that I'm now going back in there. So yeah, I thought that the corporate environment had evolved, and that women were now, there are more women, I think, but still a lot of them aren't speaking up. And I went to an event at the end of last year for young scientists, and a lot of the women there were saying, I'd just given up even trying to speak up in a meeting. And I was like, no, we need your voice.
We definitely do.
Yeah. So So I think things have evolved, but there's definitely room
Oh, a lot
for,
more room for growth, yes. And things kind of go kind of in waves, don't they? We see a nice progression and then it kind of dips down where somebody didn't get the memo, and then retraining and back up. And we can't blame kind of the males of corporate because this is the way it always was. It's what they've learned. They've learned it from their fathers, their uncles, their mentors, the business people. And until we kind of said no, like that movie Bombshell, I think really was an eye opener to a lot of men of exactly what was going on and the fact that they didn't stand up for women. They're, blind eye, blind eye, deaf and dumb. I don't want to know because if I know, then I'm going to have to do something. And that's the kind of what you get a lot in communities as well as corporation. But I think if the men see the empowerment of the women and the women standing up for themselves, they're more inclined to stand up for the women, right? So
yeah.
I think we're showing them how, whereas all they've seen is the slap on the bum as the girl goes down the corridor and hey, you get my coffee. It's that environment changes when the women stand up and stand together and say, no. You want to communicate with me, you communicate with me on this level respectfully.
And I think that's part of the problem as well. Because when I started this women's network in the bank, the men were either all in, thought it was brilliant, or they just weren't bothered. And the women were either all in, thought it was brilliant, or were really against it.
Wow.
And there were, I would say about 20% of the women really hated the idea and thought
Why
that
though? Why?
because they've struggled to get to where they were, so
Or
why
they thought
should
it might be shaking the boat too much?
yeah, or they well, why should anyone else have it easy? I've really struggled to get where I am. Why should I make it easier for anyone else? Like,
Because you're paving the path for others not to go through the same struggle and suffering as you.
yeah, exactly. They were really missing the point, I
Mm.
felt. Um, and but I think their attitude was harming the other women in the bank as well, because when I first went to the director, the one below the CEO, when he became my boss and I was saying my vision and ambitions and asking him, well, where can you support me in this? And he said, well, you've got you're well known by the board, you've built up this credibility. I can't see why any of what you've said couldn't happen for you. And then he said, and let's face it, you're not like those other tarantulas. And so that's how women, the
Yes.
women in leadership, were seen within the organization as tarantulas because they had lost all sense of who they were, what their
Right.
real values were, and they were trying to compete with the men and therefore not supporting the women. They kind of really saw themselves as another breed almost. It was
Kind of the no man land, right? They're not woman, they're not man. They kind of put on the suits and try and act tough, to compete with the man, but then they lose the very essence of their femininity, which is their strength, And yes,
yeah,
you saw that a lot in kind of the women's lib, the going too far. Again, kind of 70s and 80s was my big business time before I had kids. And it was seeing people, the suits, the this and that. I've got to be a powerhouse like a guy. And
yeah.
it's like you actually do gain more in your femininity and in being a woman's approach to something rather than you trying to mimic a man's just so you can get into the man's club. And I think a lot of that was happening where people were kind of lost. I can't speak as a woman, but I'm not a man. What am I?
Yeah. And it was interesting that what I learned from kind of my path through corporate, and one thing that changed things, I had this brilliant book called, I've still got it on my shelf, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And in it, it's got 101 ways that women self-sabotage or sabotage their career and they don't even know.
Wow.
So simple things like we ask permission instead of saying, oh, I'm going to do this. It's like, oh, I'm going to try that. So
Well, like
instead
you're
of,
saying, I don't type,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, these tiny little things
Mm.
that we're giving away our power and signaling that we're not capable. And so I started putting a lot of these things in place. And I remember saying, oh, instead of asking permission, I'm just going to tell them, oh, I'm going to London. Can you sign this form? And, okay. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. What else can I ask for?
Yeah.
It became really fun. But it was a real revelation to do that. And I saw that the men were really supportive. If you told them, this is what I need, this is how you can support me, they would do it.
Yeah. They
And I
just
see
needed
it now.
direction.
Yeah, and I see it now with my business network, my of entrepreneurial friends. The men will support you if you tell them what they need to do.
Right.
Whereas
Just
we
don't
kind
ask
of
them to guess
no,
because, they have no clue. Right.
yeah,
Please just tell them what you want. Just say, well, I thought they might see it. No, they don't see it.
no,
Articulate it.
exactly. And I had a lady on my podcast, and she'd raised $3 million of funding for her business, and she's a young Black woman, so she's at the demographic that typically gets the least funding.
Right.
But what she discovered was that you find the men that have the network and tell them, support me, please. This is my idea. It's brilliant. Who do you know who will invest in this? And they're like, oh, brilliant. Yes. Who do I know? And
Uh-huh.
then they brought me all these investors. But it took a bit of courage. And it was only
Yes.
by one man saying, well, this is how a guy would do it.
Yeah.
Why don't you try that? And then she's like, oh, well, can you introduce me to someone to
Yeah.
start with? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And then it started that ball rolling. But as you said, men have uh, like generations of
Yes.
training in how to do that, whereas women don't. So we're going in, we're still playing the good girl, waiting politely to be noticed and for people to read our mind about what
Yes.
we want. When actually, if we just go and say, hey, can you help me with this? Do you know anyone that needs this? Or can you put me in touch with someone that has this skill or knowledge or whatever it may be that we need? And they'll say, sure.
I
It's
think a lot
really,
of the time we got to step into mama role.
yeah,
It's because I've run restaurants and it's we have the time where it's downtime and it's laughter time while we're preparing or this and that. But then when the customers are in there and things need to be done, the tone changes. We're now serious and everybody gets into your role. And I'm the
yeah,
conductor, right? And it's and we can play later. It's kind of a lot like with the children. It's time to pick up. We're going to eat now, clear the dishes, da 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 da. Now you can go play. So, and I think very often we have to step into that role. Do you know that book, Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, MD?
yes, I do.
It's a lovely book, and I know that when I first read it, and they also did a beautiful illustrated book for children as well who are going through change like divorce or having to move, etc. But it was such a simple book. For people who don't know it, two mice, two men around abundance of cheese. One day the cheese is gone, and it's the four key reactions. It's sniffy and scurry, go sniff out and scurry around for more cheese. Hem and ha. Ha is like, I just don't know what to do. I'm a little bit dumbfounded, but hell, I'm hungry. I better go and find Sniffy and Scurry and see where the cheese is. And then hem, of course, give me back my cheese. Who do I have to sue? And I'm not going to move at all. And it's all around our ability to change and accept change. And I'm a true colors coach as well, the four key personalities which match. I think that's the reason why that book had so much influence on me, is that you do have people that no matter what, even if their life depended on it, they are not willing to change.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just simply can't deal with those people, right? Don't try. Don't try. If you can see that roadblock is there, it doesn't matter. If you take damn machine gun to try and go through the wall, it's not going to happen. They're not going to change.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to understand that. And I came at that understanding from a marketing perspective. So you have the diffusion of innovation curve where you have the innovators, the people that will jump in as soon as there's anything new, they'll
Yes.
buy it just because it's new.
Yes.
Then you have the early majority who will follow closely afterwards, and so on. And then you've got the laggards, who are these people that will only change once they have no choice. The
Right.
world has changed and they're being dragged along.
There's no analog TV anymore.
No, exactly, exactly. So, and that theory is what I applied. So, it was an oil company, oil and gas company that I worked for with the guy who expected me to type.
Mm.
And when I came in with my strategies, he was really like, "Oh no, you haven't been here long enough to
Yeah.
suggest anything yet." I was like, well, "What are you paying me for?"
Right.
So I went to it became clear that there were other directors who were a bit more open. So I worked with them and I helped just market their service, their
Yeah.
department. And then they started to get really great results. And then this guy was like, hold on a minute. Well, why are they getting great results? I was like, because they let me work with them. I
Mm.
came to you with the ideas and you're like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. So I'd be happy to share some suggestions with you if you're ready. And he was, oh, maybe I'll take a look.
Yeah.
And by the time I left the company, he was a great supporter and a great friend. But it took a while. He was
Yeah.
definitely in that laggard space. But I think understanding that you can
Mm.
find those innovators, find the people who are a bit more
Yes.
open and start there.
Yeah.
It's like if you
Let
don't
them be the inspiration to, the change isn't so fearful. Oh, this is really a much easier way of doing things. The progression of the company is so much better this way. And then it's like a no-brainer, but it's like the proof has got to be in the pudding first, hasn't it?
yeah, exactly. So I kind of it felt like that adage, if there's no door, climb through the window kind of
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. Let's get back to that word relationship because communication, networking, working in a, whether you're a solopreneur or working in a big corporate, everything is around that communication, which is building relationships. And
Mm.
again, if you don't have that relationship with yourself, like as you in the beginning, we, instead ownership of I, but people coming into the I have also got to understand, where is that I coming from? Is it something you do really stand by? A certain amount of humility needs to be in there. Um, and not this I, because that can also be off-putting. So do you find for people stepping into the I, the me, I'm taking the ownership, something hard for them to do? And some people maybe take it too far with that relationship of self?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the start point, as you kind of started to allude to there, is to understand yourself first.
Yeah.
What are your values? What do
Yes.
you stand for? What's important? And what are you going to fight for in a meeting and what are you going to let slide?
Yeah.
And when I started to do that, that's the moment where everything changed because there were certain things that people were arguing about. And so I could join this argument, but honestly, I don't care. It
Yeah.
doesn't affect me and my team. It doesn't affect what we're trying to achieve within the company, the goals that we're working towards. So fine, let them fight over that. But as soon as they kind of stepped into my
Mm.
territory, then I was like, hold on a minute. And I could step in there.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And again, I remember being in a meeting when I was heavily pregnant, feeling awful. And I was just really concentrating on getting through the meeting. So I wasn't
Mm.
fully concentrating. And then suddenly everyone just stared at me and was like, what? And I'm like, oh, aren't you going to say something? I was like, what do you mean? He just said this. I was like, oh, no, you can't do that. And they go, yeah, okay, great. And then I suddenly thought, oh, they know what I stand for. And that was
Right.
a real epiphany for me that I'd been so consistent with my values
Yeah.
and clear about what my values meant to me. How, if I, for example, if integrity is important to you, if that's
Hmm.
one of your values, what does that look like in your language, in your behavior, in the things you say yes and no to? How do you live that?
How do you
What's that?
represent? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So how do you, and then embody that,
Yeah.
and then it makes it much easier to uh, act in that way consistently. And over time, it just becomes so naturally a part of you, and people trust that.
Yeah.
Because if one day you're saying yes to this, and the next day you're saying yes to something completely different,
Hmm.
people don't quite trust you. They don't
Yeah.
quite know where you fit, and that's where you struggle.
Right.
And I think if you're a people pleaser, you
Hmm.
definitely fall into that camp where people don't quite know, what do you represent here? Where do you, we can't quite trust you because you're not being consistent. We can't rely on
Right.
how you're going to react in a certain situation. So I think if you know your values and are willing to stand up to those, then it does build, it feels a bit scary and uncomfortable at first, but very quickly you see the impact of that and how it gives everyone else permission as well to be more open and stand up for their values as well.
Yeah. Well, it's also knowing, your own boundaries.
Yeah.
No, I won't do that. You know, see me for the assets that I bring. That is not my strength. please approach somebody else whose strength it is. But we're so, especially if we're new in a job or trying to club, we feel fearful of saying no. And then it's like, well, what the hell do I do with this? Because this is not my department. And then you feel really kind of panicked because you can't do anything with it. And then you feel guilty, or you feel the shame, or you feel this, or you feel that, instead of just saying, no, not my department. Sorry, I can't help you here. Have you tried so and so?
Yeah.
And
And the same with priorities. If you've got your priorities you're working to, and someone else, oh, I've got this, it's really urgent, can you help? And you kind of feel obliged, oh, yes, I must help you. And I taught myself out of that as well. I was like, no, hold on a minute. Yeah, I'd love to help you. I can do that on Tuesday. How does that
yes,
work?
yeah,
And you'd be amazed how many urgent problems could actually wait till next Tuesday.
right. Or that they
So,
work it out in the meantime, right? And it's, yeah, I was one of those people, drop everything and go and do it, because I thought that me being of service and being there for them kind of validated who I was, right? It was a hard lesson to
yeah,
learn the other way. But I think that what I say to people, it doesn't matter if you're in corporate business, solo business, networking business, doesn't matter what business you're in. And no matter where you are, whether you're in the business arena at the moment or whether you're at a restaurant where you meet someone, the consistency of who you are should always be the same. Now, you wear different hats for different situations, but I want to know the person I bump into the restaurant and the person I've been doing business with is the same core person.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if not,
absolutely.
then people go, hang on, who have I been dealing with?
Yeah. Again, it's building that know, like, and trust.
Mm,
And if you're inconsistent, it's really hard to do that, to build up that credibility, that trust.
yes,
And people don't do business with people they don't like or they don't trust. And so I think it's really overrated. And what I've seen in the entrepreneurial world is that when you understand your value, not just your values, but your value, what you represent to your clients, how you uniquely solve their problem and care about
mm,
their world and where they're going in life, when you can kind of show up and communicate your value and your values, then you can do so much more. People build up this belief that you are valuable, that you have this confidence that you can solve their problem. So then you don't have to sell to them anymore.
yes,
You don't have to push, you don't have to
no,
convince. They're already convinced. You just
yes,
have to have a great conversation to check in with, can I really help you? And are you someone I really want to work with? We often forget that other part. We like
yes,
just say yes to everybody. Oh, they're going to pay me. Yes, please.
yeah.
And then we end up working with all these nightmare clients that don't help us at all. But
Yeah, they got to buy you first. And
yeah,
you see, it's also in whatever business, it's okay for us to say, you know what, I don't think this is a fit. I
yeah,
don't think I can help you here in the way that you need. However, I do have someone I can refer to, right?
yeah,
Or if I don't have anybody particular, I do believe that if you kind of looked in at this particular network or this group, you will find somebody better suited. And because, one thing I absolutely dislike intensely is when people come at me money first,
yes,
right? Because I feel you've just slapped a dollar sign on me, right? And you're pitching a service because you're looking for that dollar. You're not looking at me as a person to serve me. You're not really interested in who I am or what I need. You're just looking to make a dollar from me.
yeah.
And
I had,
people just don't, they feel that, no, see me, hear me, what I need,
yeah.
right? Not just, I'm just another ka-ching for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're selling to women, women really want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want an experience, they want to
Hmm.
feel a partner in that experience. They don't want to
Yes,
just be told, well, this is what you need, like buy it now. Like,
yeah,
well, no, I don't want to.
exactly. We don't
Um,
want to be pushed. We want to be
yeah,
invited. We want to be
exactly.
inspired, right? We want to know that you're drinking the same Kool-Aid that you're selling.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And it was interesting. Just yesterday, I had a networking event and we were discussing networking.
Mhm.
And a lot of the members, because the first question I put out there was, well, how do you feel about networking today? And at least half of them said they really dislike it. The reason they dislike it, they realized, was because they don't like this pressure that they
Yeah.
have to come away with clients
Yes.
and sell to people. I was like,
Right.
well, that's not why you go networking. You don't
No.
go networking to sell to people and find
Right.
your client. You go to find interesting people.
Yes.
And then you follow up with those interesting people to find out, well, what role do they play in my network? Are they
Mhm.
someone who may become a client? Is there someone who may be a partner or a mentor
Yeah.
or just a friend?
Yes.
It could be anything, but you're not going to know that from a 5 minute conversation. So you
It's like
have to,
speed dating, isn't it?
yeah,
People go in, they're handing, and I handing the card while they're looking at the next person that they're going to go to. And
yeah,
again, you just feel, do you care?
yes,
And, I'm more of a person that I'll find one or two people, and maybe the entire time is the conversation with this person, right? And, it's going to go where it's going to go.
exactly.
But if you're going there to just say, how many Rolodex of cards did I get out? Now I'm going to send everybody a pitch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, worse, giving out your brochure at the event. It's like,
Oh,
no.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sign
mean,
up now. It's an excellent deal. But back off. Back off. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's, but so many people have that approach that
Yeah.
people have come to expect that that's what is
Yes.
what constitutes successful networking. It really, really doesn't. Everyone listening, you have permission not to do that.
Do you find
Um,
actually because of COVID, we couldn't physically network anymore, and a lot of it went to the Zooms that required a different patience from people? I do a great deal of networking from around the world through Zoom, right? And we interact in chat, or everybody has their thing where they can say something, or they make comments, and it's a different form of interaction. And I feel that people actually participate more. They interact more because you're focused in one area. You can't just jump in over somebody, right? There's a certain amount of conducting of it, and I find that for a lot of ways that I think we're listening better because we're more focused. Whereas if you're in a room, then is he talking to you with one eye over that person over there? And it's because that person's wearing the Armani suit. Oh God, they must be rich, and off they go. Where the person that's wearing the torn jeans and shirt is actually the billionaire.
yeah, yeah. On Zoom, we're all in pajamas.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah, yeah.
did you
It's
find it
interesting.
changed because of that?
I a bit,
Mm,
yes, but I did see this. Here's my business card behavior in the chat, where people
mm,
would just say, they would just put in their LinkedIn link, not even, "Hi, I'd love to connect with you.
yes.
Here's my LinkedIn," or even better, "This is a reason. This is what I talk about on
Mm,
LinkedIn. If
mm,
you're interested, come and just dumping that link."
yes.
And sorry,
See, protesting. You can't dump your link.
sorry.
That's okay. I love it when they interact. They have an opinion.
Yes, she was like, "Yes, don't do that."
Yes.
Um, but yeah, people were just link dumping, which to me was the same behavior as just going out and
Yeah.
giving your business card out to everyone straight away. I encourage all my clients to give your business card out last at the
Hmm.
end of a conversation. So it's like a gift. It feels like, oh, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'd love to stay in touch. Here's my business card. Can I get your details?
Yes.
And then it feels really like a nice part of
You've
the
made a
exchange.
connection. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think there's, yeah, so parts did improve with Zoom, but I think there is there's still a way to go.
Yeah, I mean it's the same with social media. Social media is meant to be an interactive thing. And for me, Facebook and LinkedIn are the ones where I social media. The other things are kind of postings. They're not interactions. And it's take so much of your day and put it as part of the business practice to follow a conversation, to interact with someone, to support someone. And because I believe that there you are being personable, you're showing people you care, you're taking the time out to have that chat. And I have built up many a person that way from just commenting on something, or for me it's like, oh yeah, I have a show on this topic and I post the link, maybe it would be a solution for you. But it's not just about the millions of likes, it's about that interaction. We need connection as human beings.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's how
social media
people are.
should be the connective platform, but it's become just sales pitch, sales pitch, sales pitch, and
Yeah.
it's become a shop rather than a social platform.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's really disappointing that everyone's kind of moved to LinkedIn and thinking, oh, we're safe over here. We're not going to get spammy messages, and
Right.
then we get found. It's like, no.
Yeah, I know. Yes,
Um, but
the
I
toads
think
are out there.
yeah, and I think people are more and more intolerant of that now.
Yes.
And so we aren't accepting invitations that have any hint of being spammy, and getting rid of people straight away. So hopefully that behavior is going to go
Well, I mean,
away.
it's all an algorithm, isn't it? We are algorithms. So as soon as they see you like something or anything, they throw it at you. I don't know how many proposals I've had on Facebook. I saw your profile. I'm a good Christian man with widow. And it's always the same script, right? So when somebody comes up, I go and look at their about, right? And if there's nothing in there about, and if your description on your page is just one picture of the after the other inane or you, then no, thank you, because I know you're not an interactive person. There's an alternative motive here. And I think, again, that's the due diligence, right? Don't just accept someone. Look at who it is you're accepting. Is it a kind of person that you do want to have an interaction with? And if not, just don't accept the request.
Yeah, and make sure that you're behaving ethically. And I
Yes.
don't know if you do this, but when people apply to my podcast, I do go and check them out on
Yes,
LinkedIn,
me
social
too.
media. I see how they're behaving. Are they interacting? Are they active? And what do they share?
Yeah.
What kind of language do they use? What kind of connections do they have? And so many people do not make it onto my show. They have a brilliant pitch, but then their actions elsewhere betray
Yes.
them.
I
So
agree with you 100%. I look at a person's side. I follow, I have a lot of publicists that send me things, but even with the content that's there, I still go to the site. Very
yeah,
often I do find a site doesn't match the person because they've hired someone to do it, right? And it's generically done and somebody else says, oh, this is the latest thing. And like, but where's you in the site? You
yeah,
know, my site is old fashioned. I do it all myself. People know they're going to get wacky Sarah. This is it, right? If you're looking for the pristine, crisp, this, that, etc., no, it's not going to be me. Full of color, full of this and that, because that's me. But we need to know. I've said no to people, definitely, because okay, I kind of get where you're going with the topic, but just reading the content of the approach, I know this is going to be confrontational. And I like to address a problem, but I want to leave people with a solution. I don't want to rant and rave.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It has to take people somewhere helpful,
Yeah.
like, and feel, and sometimes that value isn't necessarily a solution, but helping them feel not alone, that
Yes.
they're not weird or anything like that. And that's part of why I started my podcast, because I just saw so many entrepreneurs feeling lonely and that they were the only ones that were struggling. Everyone else
Right.
has got this fixed. It was like,
Yes.
no one really knows what they're doing.
Well,
We're
when
all,
you're struggling, all you see is other people's success.
yes,
And you go, but why not? Well, what am I doing wrong? And
yeah,
it's like, again, there's two words I absolutely hate is comparison, competition. Leave competition for competitions. Don't compete with anyone. Don't compare to anyone. You can be inspired by somebody
yes,
and the way they do things, etc. And that could be a great influence to you. But the moment you compare, you've lost yourself. So you've lost your authenticity, you've lost your own vibe, and that means you've gone back to being the we rather than the I.
yes. And you feel full of shoulds and
Yes.
starting to be trying, oh, I should be doing all of these things. And that's when you burn out, go crazy, and you say, lose yourself. You don't
Yeah.
stand for anything. People don't come to you, your profile or your website and think, yes, finally, I've found someone that can help me. And that's what we all want to do. We just
Yeah.
want to help people. But if we don't if we're not ourselves, we can't show them that we can help them. We don't connect. And it all comes down to this sense of connection, doesn't it? And I was,
Resonating, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny, I was at a panel event. It was myself and another lady who she's a finance and legal expert supporting entrepreneurs, and I'm more the sort of communication and marketing side. And we had a room full of people, women who were starting their business, and they had all these questions. but it was got quite comical at the end, because the answer to every single question was, go back, know your value, who you're working with, and then you'll know the answers to these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but what kind of marketing is best? Like, I don't know. But I've been doing marketing for 30 years, but until you know what you represent, what you're
Mm-hmm.
offering, and exactly to who and why that matters to them and to you, I don't know what's going to work for you. What's your personality? What do you like? There were so
Right.
many things, but it all comes back to basics. And that's why I've really regrouped now around just understanding and communicating your value. And then that builds your confidence, and that then dictates, it creates that filter for all of your decisions. So your processes, the people you hire, the marketing you do, the branding you choose, everything comes from that space. But I think a lot of people miss that, or they have kind of evolved and they haven't gone back to check
Mm.
in with, is my value proposition still working for me? Where can I tighten this up a little bit? And I'm seeing that now as well with a lot of coaches and consultants. And I know when I started my business 15 years ago, it was easy, getting clients. I don't ever think I marketed myself at all. It
Mm.
all came through referrals, through my
Yes.
network. It was pretty easy. I didn't have a website for the first 2 years. My marketing was very, very basic, and we didn't have social media to the same
Mm.
extent. I had LinkedIn. My profile
Mm.
was like /Melitta. There's nothing else. I've been there that long. But it was pretty simple. But now there is so much competition. Everyone is online. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
do have to stand out. You do have to go back and think, well, what do I really represent? And if you've been in business for a while, you've got a big advantage, because you've got a
Yes.
bank of testimonials and
Yeah.
experience. You have to filter through those and think, this is what I'm all about. This is how I stand out, and I'm different from everyone else. But it takes it's a bit of a process, but it starts, as we said right back at the beginning, understand your values and your
Mm.
value, and yeah, then put everything. And then I think once you understand that and embrace it and embody it, all this comparison, this need for
Mm.
competition, that all goes away
Form
anyway.
one wayside. Well, as
Yeah.
when I send my form out to people, it is, what's your why? Why do you want to do this? Or why do you want to connect? The why, because I don't think people ask the why. And I think when you ask the why is this important to me? Right. And
Mm.
you actually answer that for yourself. It's important to me because I want to make a difference, or because I feel I've got something to contribute. The what and the how and the where and the whom will follow, but it's like, why are you doing it? Because and I'm sure for you, for all the years that you've been doing this, and certainly for the 11 years I've been doing podcasting, so many people have had sometimes the cosmic 2x4, a complete and utter wackaroo, and having to restart all over again. Some people are nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and they realize that the journey that they were on was just no longer aligned with who they were and where they wanted to go. And they were brave enough to pivot in another way. Some people who I said the cosmic 2x4 had to literally come out of the ashes, and
Mm.
they had to leave pain and anguish and everything behind and rise up like that phoenix again and find the strength, find their courage, find their abilities, find the reason why. And the why is who you've become because of what happened to you, not
Yeah.
what happened to you. And what they represent today. And what they represent today is so inspirational, so courageous, and so invitational that they become that beacon of light for other people. If you can come from that to this, I want to know how. But we've got to have our story out there so people can relate or not relate, or not want to relate. But when people feel they can relate, your story may not be the same as mine, but at the same time, the struggle that you went through, I'm going through. How did you get through it? I want to know. And that's that door invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you connect with your why, often we have this imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this?
Hmm.
Can I really achieve this? Am I out of my depth or whatever? When you find your why, you realize, who am I not to do this? I
Yes.
can't not do this. I can't not share the wisdom of my experience with all these people I see that are having that exact challenge and are
Yes.
feeling so lost. They just need to understand this, and then I know everything's going to unravel
Yeah.
for them. And I see it with my clients.
Mm.
I have a 12-week program, and often it's kind of week 2 or 3, and suddenly they're like, huh, it's this. And
Yes.
they don't need to learn anything new. I don't need to give them anything specific. I just give them like some tools and frameworks to explore what they already have and make those connections. And I think that's the bit that people miss when they're doing their why. They stay too much on the surface. You need to go a
Right.
little bit deeper. I think in Lily Singh, she calls it like a tiramisu. You've got all the fluff and the sprinkles on the top. You want to get to the really juicy bit at the bottom.
Well, in a
So
lot of ways, you're giving them the ingredients or helping them actually identify the ingredients for their own unique dish,
yes,
right? So you're giving them the recipe of how to put things together, but what they're choosing for that ingredient is their niche, is their gift, right? But
yeah.
there is a formula. And I think people get kind of thrown off because I have this great idea. My passion is want to do this. My heart is saying to do that. But everything is kind of on the kitchen table and I don't know how to put it together because we
Yes.
become overwhelmed by the passion or the need or the this and that. And so you kind of come along and can help everybody see the order that they can put things and make that dish that then becomes delectable for someone else. But I think we get caught up with, but what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the exciting part, certainly for what I do,
Mm,
is that people come to me with a business idea or a business they've started, and it's just not quite coming together, but
yeah,
they're not sure why. They've got all the
right.
cogs that working, everything's in place, but it's not working together to build that momentum. And so that's where I help them kind of go back, redefine, reassess everything and bring it back together in a way where all the cogs fit together, and move them where they want to go to. But the exciting thing is, exactly as you say, you don't know what they're going to do with those ingredients. And
Right.
so,
Yeah. And that's the
yeah,
exciting part though, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean,
I always
even
have an inkling, think, oh, I think this is what's going to come out for them and this is where
mhm,
they go. But 9 times out of 10, they do something way better.
yeah.
It's really exciting to see.
Well, you've got this wonderful book, The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, which
Yes.
you've written. Is this kind of memoirish?
Ish, yes. So when I was starting to build my networking skills and try and figure things out, I read so many networking books, but they all missed how none of them really spoke to how I felt.
Mm,
They gave some great advice, do this, do that, whatever. But they didn't address, if you feel this way, if your knees are shaking as you're walking in, and
mm,
you can feel yourself flush and you just want to go and hide, this is how to get over
yeah.
that. And what I created for myself was what I called my victory formula. So it's going back, you'll like the V, it's value. It's understanding your values. What do you stand for? What are you representing? Getting intentional, building your courage and your confidence, staying true to yourself,
Yes.
creating your rules, understanding what obstacles are likely to trip you up and making a plan already. So it's all of these things just to make sure you feel really ready. Your mindset is in the right place. It's working for you.
Mm,
And then the second part of the book then looks at, okay, well, practically, what do you do before, during, and after the event to make it a success? And I look a little bit at online networking, and actually it's not that different. You still have to show up in the same way,
yes.
represent your brand, and how you build your personal brand as well. So it's all wrapped up. It's only short, it's 100 pages, it's a really simple read, but it's got none of the fluff in it.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't want the fluff. I just want to help people to move forward, and for it to be a bit of a tool that they can refer back to
The how-to
easily.
book. The how-to book.
Exactly,
Right. Yeah.
exactly.
And
So
that's really important. And of course, you've got something that you're sharing with people, which is that's what you heard in the background a moment there, the video coming up, is how to attract your next dream client.
yes.
So you have that link there where people can click into and watch for free. So tip is, because that's something we always need, is even if somebody's seasonal, they've been doing this a long time, we're inclined to get into ruts or doing things the same, and then we suddenly notice, hey, gosh, things are changing around me. You know, what used to work isn't working anymore. And, you know, we need to shift, or we just sometimes need a reminder that don't forget to evolve, don't forget to, you know, adjust to the times. You're not going to lose your core value. You're not going to lose your core message, but you do sometimes have to be more flexible. And that's really important, isn't it? To be able to maintain the level. You've got to be flexible and adjustable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to keep reflecting so that, you know, you make those small adjustments, and we're all evolving. You
Yes.
know, what was possible for you a year ago, you know, you've grown so much since
Yeah.
then. The world has changed. You need to rethink, okay, well, now how do I show up in alignment in this world, in this context? Um,
And don't be
and yeah,
daunted by it, be excited by it.
yeah, absolutely. And the training takes you through how to start identifying your value, how to start communicating that so you can start to build this know, like, and trust before you even get to a sales conversation.
Mhm.
So you can have a nice conversation. And then, or it goes on to how you can balance the logic and the emotion. So
Mm.
we need to have that emotion there to connect with people and for them to think, yes, that's where I want to go. But then they think, oh, can I really do this? Is
Yeah.
it going to be possible for me? So you have to have the logic.
Yes.
Like, well, this is how you're going to get there. So like, oh, okay, they've got a plan. Brilliant. So you need those two elements. So it talks about how you can start to define those and balance those as well. So yeah, I think it's a nice start point. And I was quite excited to put that training together and give it away to people for free, because it's the thing, as I said earlier, I see people miss the most.
Yeah.
They move on to the tactical things, or, you know, the exciting or the nice sort of new shiny object, and they miss this sort of core piece that makes everything else fall into place.
I mean, you know, everything is relationships and everything is management, you know, and, you know, we have, I'm certainly driven a great deal by passion and very instinctual and in the moment type person. And of course, in running this, I had to kind of step into some management, some, you know, some logics of, you know, Z doesn't go before A. So, you know, it's it's the next steps. And that was not my forte. You know, as a True Colors coach, the gold represents that lovely, steadfast, you know, management, file and order. And that particular representation of my color was in the next building. So it's something I actually had to learn. So it's you go, okay, you know, I feel uncomfortable with this, but however, I do need it in my business. So don't be intimidated by it. Look at how you can bring it in, those necessary steps that you need to take, and become familiar with them. And then they don't feel so daunting, do they?
Yeah, and give yourself the let's say the space and the grace to
Yes.
figure out these steps, to take the time to understand them, to learn that new piece of knowledge, and the grace to mess up a few times along the way as well.
And you know, please do not go in feeling that everything's got to be perfect. Sometimes people like to see someone make a mistake because it makes it feel that they're not alone when they make them. It's the grace in which you make the mistake. You know,
Yeah.
it's how you come back from it. It's you're going to say something or trip up or do something or miss an appointment. How do you manage that? And yeah, and I think that is, we're human after all, and things happen in life. And I think it's grace and gratitude are two things I like to live by. You know, grateful for the opportunity or just being alive today, but you know, the grace of getting through life is the way you conduct yourself. You know, whether you trip up or you know, you don't. And I think it's really, even in saying to someone, not for me, you know, thank you very much for thinking of me, but not for me. There's still grace in denying somebody something as well, right?
Yeah, and I kind of see that making mistakes and messing up is part of my service.
Yes,
Because
yes,
I work with women who are, you know, in this sort of first 5 years of business. They are learning, they're making mistakes, and if they see me making mistakes first, then it feels okay.
yes.
And I started a public speaking club, and if I stood up and I was blushing and stumbling a
Mhm.
little bit and didn't always remember everything, then everyone else had permission that it was okay to do that too. That it was okay to step up and try even before they felt 100% ready.
Right,
So yeah, so messing up is 100% part of my service.
right. And I think, you know, the main message is, I think, for everybody in anything that you do, in any aspect of your life, is just be yourself,
Yes.
right? Be yourself, why you're doing it, why you're so passionate about it, the authenticity of what you're standing for,
Mm.
right? You know, it's not about the sale. That's the end product. The best kind of business is to have when somebody doesn't even buy from you, but they like you so much, they're going to refer you to a whole load of people that will become your customer.
Yeah. Oh, I've had that so many
Yeah,
times. People that come for a sales call, but it's not quite right for them, or I don't feel that I represent a good investment for them. And so I've given them as much as I can on that call, but it's like, I don't think really I'm the best person to help you with this. And then they brought me so many clients. They've
yeah,
left me Google reviews. They've
yes,
really become my biggest fans, my biggest
yes,
supporters out there on social media are people who will never be a client,
yeah,
or not anytime soon, but they really respect my integrity and the way I've shown up.
exactly. I don't
Yeah.
care what business you're in, whether you're in corporate, whether you're a solopreneur, you know, whether you're just, you know, running the parents association at school. It doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter where you are or what space you're in your life. It's the integrity of who you are and why you are, your authenticity. That, knowing that and always standing tall in that will open many doors for you on many, many levels in your life. You know, everybody else is taken. You know, "Oh, I want to be like Beyonce. I want to be like Oprah. I want to be like that." And it's like, well, they're taken, right? You can be influenced, you can be inspired, but where's the Oprah in you? You know, the Beyonce in you? Where's your bootylicious? You know, and just be yourself because that is enough. That is enough. And the more at home you are with yourself and every aspect of what you do, the more you're going to open up to those relationships. The more of those relationships are going to open up to business and also having friendships from people you've done business with and
Yeah.
them becoming part of your friendship circle, which is absolutely beautiful. No longer doing business with you, but they won't like you so much they want to remain your friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got lots of clients like that who still come to, I do this monthly networking event, and they still want to stay close. And I love it because I hate saying goodbye to anyone. They really have,
Exactly.
yeah, they really have become friends. And but I would say, it sounds very easy. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not always that easy to know
No,
who you are,
it,
particularly if you've had a life and you've evolved over time and you've kind of taken bits from everywhere. So it is a process.
it
So I
is.
think, yeah, give yourself that space and grace, go through the
Yeah.
process, ask people what they love most about you
Mhm.
to get some clues as well of how you're showing up in the world, and start to filter all of that information. So don't expect to just instantly have that answer, but it is an important one to dig into, I think.
You know, and I always say that, you know, being present and being in silence with self is a great gift, and not everyone could be there, but get there if you can. But you know, also have a mirror talk. It's very, very hard to lie to yourself eyeball to eyeball. All right. And, you know, it's have that mirror talk. And, you know, the other thing I've always said is, you know, write that list, everything that you feel you're not, and then everything that you know that you are, and then decide which one you're going to feed.
Mm, yeah, I love that. It's yeah, when we do, as I did a SWOT analysis with a group where I was doing a marketing thing with a long time ago, and I got them to do it on themselves, and it was so interesting that they came up with, I don't know, 3 strengths and so many weaknesses.
Yes.
But when you actually went through these weaknesses, so many of them were strengths that they
Yes.
just hadn't recognized. And
Right.
I had one, I remember one client that really stood out for me, and the one big weakness, the one thing that was really fueling her imposter syndrome more than anything else, I kept telling her, but that's your strength. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you different from all these other
Mm,
people that have been doing this particular thing for 20 years. You've come at it fresh because you've got this other experience. And that's why people will come to you. And she just didn't see it. Our very last session, she introduced herself and her business, and she mentioned this, what she previously thought was the weakness. as the core strength in her business. I was like,
Yes.
the very next week, she got 3 clients who all paid her literally 5 times more than anyone had ever paid her before, because they wanted that exact strength. And it was there the whole time. She just missed it because she was
Seeing
feeling
it
like
through somebody else's eyes and not really
yeah,
from the truth of what it was.
exactly. She was comparing herself to
Yeah.
these other people instead of, as we said, right, well, we said throughout, really understanding where she was coming from, what her strengths are. And as soon as she recognized that, then people were like, yes, please.
Yes.
And it was wonderful. It was such, I remember, yeah, we remember those things that we have an emotional connection to. And I really remember that session and just the look on her face when she
Mm.
proudly said, this is who I am. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I'm a differently abled person in the sense that I do have dyslexia. Being a very sickly child, losing oxygen, there's a lot of things that my brain doesn't do. And from so long, I measured myself in what I couldn't do and
Mhm.
put my worth there until I realized what I could do. And that's where my value is. And I think it's, being open about the things that I have or my challenges that I have has just made me with other people more real. And also to understand their challenges that they're going through. Don't be ashamed of them. Don't look at them as something that is a flaw. It is part of what makes you up. And the fact that we look at our challenges and every day face them and every day deal with them, and in spite of them, we still go and do, our challenges very often become our strength.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid to be you. As the Popeye says, I am what I am.
Yeah. I remember watching a masterclass with RuPaul about how to be authentically you. And I thought, gosh, that's quite interesting for someone whose whole career is
Yes,
around not being him.
right.
But he said it was a long time for him to discover who he was. And as soon as he did, suddenly he had a whole new level of confidence. And all these opportunities that had eluded him for so long, suddenly they were like, oh, there you are. Yes, you can do this. And I think he was one of the first drag queens to make it into popular culture and be accepted. And that was only possible because he discovered who he was himself. And then he was able to
Whether
then
he was in drag or not.
exactly.
Whether he's a drag dressed up as a beautiful woman, he's still RuPaul.
Yeah,
The integrity of who he is there no matter what face he's presenting.
yeah. It was a wonderful masterclass because you really saw the journey he's been on, and
Yeah,
you see him now, larger than life, as you say, just this stunning
yeah,
human. And you just can't ever imagine that for a second they doubted themselves. But
yeah.
and it
But
was
I think we all do doubt ourselves, and that doubt is part of our growth.
yes,
Why am I doubting? Why is it a flaw? What can I do with it? Right? How,
mhm,
how can I strengthen it? Or if it is an actual tendency, weaknesses that is my nemesis, how do I lessen its voice and strengthen the voice of something that's got my back? But we've got to be investigators in our own, things that are going on and to understand where our strength is and stand up tall and proud of whoever we are, whatever we've got, whatever ever. And just say, I am what I am. You could take me or leave me. I will not be offended, but I stand tall in my own self.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, isn't it, with these doubts, not
Yeah,
to accept them, not to let them hold you back, but accept that, okay, well, why is this doubt arising, and explore that a little bit. And it's going to give you so many interesting insights. As you say, that's where the growth lies.
yeah. And the last point here, when I started podcasting, I had so much advice from other people of what I should do. Now, you should be like this person. You should be like that person. You got to do it like this and you got to do it like that. And then it's like, Rachel Meadows, she's a political commentator. That's so far afield from who I am. And it's like, I don't know how to be those people. All I can be is Sarah. And Sarah will evolve as she does this, right?
Yeah,
And she will root as she does this. But if I am spending all my energy trying to be someone else and the way they do it, how can I ask for other people's authenticity? Because then I would not be authentic myself.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that was my experience with networking, that I shadowed an extrovert for a long time who loved networking. I thought, right, I'll just copy what she does. And then it became like, we'd only been to like 2 or 3 events. I thought, I'm never going to be her. There's just
Right.
no way I can ever show up the way she does. And that was the moment when I realized I have to find my own way.
Yes. And that
So
it's enough. And
yes,
that your way is enough, and it's going to uh, be sought out by people who need your frequency, who need your vibe, who need
yeah,
your wavelength, because it's not one size that fits all, right?
exactly.
So, I had somebody on this week who's a huge Tony Robbins fan, and a real motivator and a real about momentum. She's got extremely high energy. I could never match that energy. And she's for the people with that high energy that like to put themselves up in that fifth gear. I, I, my engine would combust before I could get there. So, but that's the point: is be yourself again, living in your own authenticity, doing things your way, but understanding there's always a new way that you can learn and apply that enhances what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for a long time, I thought the same. I have to be high energy like all these other coaches. And then I realized, no, people are coming to me because I'm
Mm.
calm.
Yes.
I'm calm. I'm not the like complete opposite of most of the people that they see on the internet. And then they realize, you made me realize that maybe I could do this because I am doing it in a different way, a much quieter way. And it works. I was, well, we were judges at the American Speak Off with Grant Cardone and Pete Varga. You couldn't get two bigger, out there, larger than life entrepreneurs. And I was just so proud. It's like, well, that shows that my quiet style can get their attention.
Mm.
Then, it's working.
Exactly. There's enough for everybody, right?
Yes.
And it's you're going to draw to you. And I think this is a big lesson for people. Do not go out there thinking you can serve everyone. Find your niche, which is a word I used to hate. But you're going to find people, I prefer vibe tribe, the people that are on the same wavelength, people that feel your energy, that vibe there, because then that communication and that relationship can really connect because they really resonate with you. And I think that is important because you can serve people so much better that way. I'm not a rah-rah person, and I'm exhausted around rah-rah people because I am more mellow and laid back. But it is, again, be true to who you are. So the book can be found on Amazon, which again is The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, which is a wonderful how-to book filled with some very easy, applicable approaches to being shy or just in doubt. What is shyness? It's kind of in doubt of self, isn't it? So,
And I
um,
think a lot of extroverts are a bit shy as well. I remember
yeah,
someone,
yes,
I'm not shy. And then I went to their Facebook page and there was no mention of their business. It's like, well, you're not showing up
yeah,
as, you're not proudly showing off your business. So you are being shy. And
yes.
they're like, oh, you're right. So yeah, I think that shyness is the doubt hiding a little bit
Mm.
when you don't need to. And experts can be shy too.
I'm an introverted extrovert, and perceived as extrovert like this, but extremely introverted, when the camera is off. So it is, it's again knowing who you are, and that is a journey, and that is a participatory journey where you do need to participate in your own life, be interactive. I always say with these shows, listen, learn, and apply, right? And when you apply what you've listened to, that inspiration, that wonderful wisdom, and you apply it to your life, now you actually understand why it works.
Yeah. It's
And your
like a fairy
website.
tale.
Mhm.
Like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
You read a fairy tale and you take a certain level of understanding, but when you read it the next time, you've grown, you've learned, you've
Yes.
evolved. You take a whole nother level of understanding. And I think our learning goes round like that. You apply it, then you kind of push the boundaries a little bit and you reassess what works, and then you see that theory, that idea in a whole different way, which is what makes it all exciting, I think.
Yeah. I love seeing things in a different way because I'm inquisitive. I always want to know what else is out there. And I think one of the things that we, as a society, a human society, has kind of let lapse because we let everything come to us in the form of entertainment or inquiry. We've forgotten to be a little wondrous and inquisitive ourselves. And it's like, ask the questions, seek out the answers, listen to the other perspectives, because that is how we evolve. That's how we learn. And there's always a question, even in the answer. Right, because it's there's an answer there, but now it proposes another question, and let it be exciting. Let it be exciting, be exploratory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, book found on Amazon, and your site is melittacampbell.com, and it's spelled MElittaCampbell.com. And you've got Melitta at melittacampbell.com for your email. Twitter is Melitta Campbell. Melitta Campbell Bell Coach from Facebook and LinkedIn, Melitta, and Instagram, Melitta Campbell, and your YouTube channel, just a whole load of dots and numbers underneath it. They can find that on your site as well, right?
Well, they've just changed it now. I think it's if you put at Melitta Campbell into YouTube, you find me there too.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, and of course, your podcast, and which is called, hang on,
The
don't do that.
Driven Female Entrepreneur.
Right. And which people can tap into anywhere. You're on iTunes and all of these places, I
Yep.
assume.
Everywhere I could possibly be, I am, I think.
Right. Yes. And again, through listening to the podcast, you're hearing things that you actually didn't even know you needed to know. And that's the
Yes.
beauty of podcasts, right? Maybe somebody's only got one thing from this entire conversation, but if it's that one thing that helps you shift and propel forward, hallelujah, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's why I love being the host of the show so much, is that I learned so much.
Yes.
This week we're releasing the 150th episode. And it's like, that's 150 things I've learned that are
Yes.
new. People I've met. It's been such a great journey.
Yes. And as I said, next week will be my 11th year of podcasting. I was with another network, and unfortunately, she's taken all those shows down, which depresses me because I did about 200 there. But I've got over 3,000 shows here on my network now, and I've done 2,900 of them or more. But who I've become because of this. And for me, it's the only thing I've done in my career that has made me want to get up in the morning and do it again. So,
Yeah.
when you find that, it's not work, it's joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to saying that I've released 2,900 episodes.
Well, each one of them are an hour plus, so there's a lot of hours in there. But that's again, when it's something that you truly do love doing, then it's just something that you go and do. And I think
Yeah.
that's if you can find that career, that job, that position in life that is something that you would do for free, not that you should do for free, but you would do for free. And that, every morning that you get up and you're looking forward to those whatever hours you're going to put into that, then you've found the right place to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Any closing words for us, my dear?
Well, just thank you for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. It's been really interesting to go back and see those connections. And I would just go back and say to everyone listening, go back, revisit your values, revisit how you want to show up, what you represent in the world, and the real value you bring to others. And once you understand that, it's really just such an incredible experience. And from there, everything becomes possible.
Yes.
Give yourself the space, as they, and the grace to and the time to really explore that. But it's a real game changer.
And don't put a time limit on it.
No.
Just participate every day. Just be present with it every day. Right? And don't say, oh, but next month I've got to be here, next month I've got to be there. It's good to have certain milestones, but you will find each week as you go, I don't need to be in a hurry for that right now. This is where the attention is needed. And if you're present with self, actually absorbing what you need to absorb in the moment, then everything else that you're projecting out will change for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an exciting process.
It is. It's not daunting, folks. It is exciting. You becoming you in all the glory of who you are. And what you stand for in life is exactly what this planet needs. So please continue on your journey. We need more awesomeness out there. Thank you so much for being with us, Melitta.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You too. Until next time, folks, remember, we need you. You need yourself. Everybody else around you needs you. So don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on self-discoverymedia.com under podcasts or self-discoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You will see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.